Hundreds of people have marched to a swimming pool, yes, after video footage emerged of police officer David Casebolt responding to a call-out in Texas. You will have seen the coverage on the news and heard it reported. The officer was filmed on Friday pinning a 15-year-old girl in a bikini to the ground with his knees and pointing a gun at teenagers. He seemed beside himself, actually. He seemed deranged. Civil rights leaders in McKinney are calling for a federal investigation. For more on this and other news making headlines in the United States, we're joined by our US correspondent, Sandra Hughes. Sandy, great to have you with us. This was extraordinary footage to look at, wasn't it? I mean, he looked deranged, this police officer.
Well, you know, anytime you see videotape of an officer pinning a young girl to the ground, like you said, in a bikini, she was observed actually by people who were standing around calling out, "Please call my mama, please call my mama." And, you know, that's very sad. But on the flip side of this, you know, there are people who are supporting the police saying, look, they were just doing their job. They were called to this party, this pool party that got a little out of hand by the people who were throwing the party, because they said there were people here that we don't want here. We want them to leave. Then there was an actual fight at the pool party. So what his state of mind is, I don't know. But, you know, just in the backdrop of what's been going on here in the States since last summer, starting in Ferguson, Missouri, and, of course, you know, the tragic death of Tamir Rice, the 12-year-old who was shot by two police officers who thought he had a gun. It turned out to be a toy, you know, airsoft gun. This is just adding some more, you know, salt to the wounds here in the United States.
To what extent? Because obviously people go into this thinking, oh, it must be motivated by skin colour. It's obviously racially motivated. But to what extent was this racially motivated?
Well, of course, the little girl who was in the bikini and those at the party say it was all racially motivated, that they're African-American, and the officer that responded was white. We don't really know that to be the case because so far there's been nothing to lead us to believe that. But like I said, this is just, you know, adding salt into the wound of so many cases where we have white police officers and African-American victims.
Okay, and this guy's been placed on leave. I mean, it does seem extraordinary because if you look at all of the police officers there, he was acting well and truly out of sorts with the other police officers. In fact, there were some shots of some of the police officers trying to restrain him, or at least, you know, questioning his behaviour. Anyway, we'll talk more about that in the future.
Pulling him back. Right,
right. Absolutely. Let's talk about, and I want to say this, poor old Albert Woodfox, 68 years. He has been on solitary confinement in a Louisiana jail for more than 40 years, and in the next couple of days he'll be a free man.
43 years to be exact. He was put in solitary confinement because he was accused of killing a prison guard during a riot back in 1973, which he denies. And two cases, they've tried him twice for this crime, and both of those cases have been overturned. And the judge seems a bit outraged in this case, the judge who ruled unconditional release for this 68-year-old man, saying there will not be a third trial, and he could be out within a few days. And he was originally incarcerated for armed robbery, but of course that sentence was served a long time ago. So, you know, an interesting point here in the United States, I don't know what the stats are in New Zealand, but 80,000 American prisoners are held in solitary confinement. And what that basically means is 23 hours a day you are in a small cell, basically, and you're allowed 1 hour a day, maybe 1 hour a day, to walk around sort of the interior of the prison. Sometimes you're never even allowed to go outside. So it's really an awful
He is going to go, potentially he will go ape when he's released. I mean, how will he be able to manage that psychologically? Anyway, very quickly, new footage, and it makes you wonder, doesn't it? You know, you go and clear out someone's house and you see some little canister of film and you think, oh, I bet that's not very important. New footage showing Amelia Earhart's last flight has emerged after, well, no one ever knew it existed.
No, this is really interesting stuff, too. It's about a 3.5-minute, 3.5-minute video that was taken by her brother in 1937. And she had actually brought a photographer to the hangar with her aircraft in Los Angeles, actually in Burbank, California. That airport still exists. I fly out of it all the time. And she was giving sort of a tour, and her brother just started rolling with this camera. It's very grainy footage, but it shows Amelia Earhart in a different sort of way. way than her public persona. She wasn't known for being very effusive or smiling a lot or gregarious. In this footage, she's giving a tour around the hangar. She jumps up on the airplane to get her picture taken. She's smiling. She's wearing a pantsuit instead of, her usual flight gear. This film was taken just before her second flight. As you remember, the first flight, they crashed in Hawaii, and the plane was brought back to California. She came back to California. And their second attempt around the world was also out of the Burbank airport. That's when they think this footage was taken. They headed east on that trip, and of course, that was the trip where she and her navigator disappeared.
Yeah. Extraordinary footage. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us. Sandy Hughes, our US correspondent.